Okay, let's get into it. We're doing a deep dive today into working from home.
hmm
It's something so many people experienced maybe suddenly over the last few years.
Right. It felt like a massive shift almost overnight for a lot of it.
Exactly. But, looking at the background, this wasn't completely out of the blue, was it?
No, not entirely. It was definitely a trend that was already sort of bubbling under the surface.
Driven by tech and people wanting more flexibility.
Precisely. Technology made it possible, and there was this growing desire for, well, a different way of structuring the workday. The pandemic just hit the accelerator really hard.
Right. Okay. So what we want to do today is unpack all of that. We'll dig into the material we've looked at,
hmm
pull out the key ideas, the real pros and cons,
Yeah, get past the headlines and see what the actual experiences and data are showing.
so you get a clear picture of what works and maybe more importantly where the big challenges pop up.
Sounds good. It affects so many different
Okay,
areas.
perfect. So let's start with the good stuff, the advantages.
Right.
And it seems these benefits aren't just for one group, are they? They kind of ripple outwards.
That's a great way to put it. Businesses see benefits, the people working see them, and even like society as a whole.
Okay, so for businesses first, what's the big draw?
Well, the most obvious one probably is saving money. Costs.
How so?
Less need for big offices. That means, lower rent, smaller utility bills, electricity, heating, all that.
Yeah, that makes sense. Cutting down the physical space cuts down the overheads.
Directly impacts the bottom line. It's a tangible saving.
Okay. What else for companies?
Keeping hold of their people. Talent retention.
Ah, interesting. How does working from home help with that?
Well, flexibility is just huge now. People really value being able to choose, to some extent, where and how they work.
You mean like it's a major factor in whether they stay or go?
Exactly. Offering remote or hybrid options has become, well, almost essential for keeping skilled people happy. We saw figures suggesting a really high percentage, something like over 70% globally, value that flexibility.
Wow. Okay, so it's not just a nice to have anymore.
No, it's often a key differentiator. It shows trust, too.
And I think we also saw mentions of potentially better productivity in some cases.
Yes, potentially. If the conditions are right, fewer office distractions, for example. And some systems make tracking work hours maybe a bit more straightforward using software.
Right, focused work time. Okay, so that's the business side. What about the advantages for the people actually, logging on from their kitchen table or home office?
Well, saving money comes up again, but on the personal side this time.
Yeah, I can see that. No commute costs.
Exactly. Gas, train tickets, bus fares, maybe wear and tear on the car. That all adds up.
Plus maybe less spent on lunches out, coffees.
Definitely. Those daily expenses can really shrink.
But it's more than just money. Right?
Oh, absolutely. The big one is that flexibility we mentioned. More control over your schedule, your day.
And the time saved from not commuting.
Huge. That's maybe hours back in your week. Time for family, hobbies, exercise, just downtime.
That sounds like it could really reduce stress.
It often does. And this leads to that idea of emotional salary.
Emotional salary. Tell me more about that.
It's like the non-financial benefits that make you feel valued, the trust, the autonomy, the better work-life balance. It makes people feel more connected to the company, even if they're not physically there.
I like that. Emotional salary. It captures that intangible value.
Yeah.
And maybe faster workflows sometimes. Less time on sort of formalities.
Yeah, potentially. Cutting out some of the maybe unnecessary meetings or just the time spent on office pleasantries can mean more focus on the actual tasks.
A shift towards results over just being present.
Exactly. A sense of independence, being trusted to get the job done based on output.
Okay, so clear benefits for individuals too. What about the broader picture? Society.
Well, the environmental impact is pretty significant.
To your commutes,
Right. Fewer cars on the road means less traffic, less congestion.
and crucially, lower emissions, less CO2.
Absolutely. Better air quality, which benefits everyone. That's a big plus.
Definitely. Anything else on the societal level?
Yeah, accessibility. It really opens up opportunities for people who might find commuting or working in a traditional office difficult.
Like people with disabilities or mobility issues.
Exactly. Removing that physical barrier can make a huge difference to the job market for them.
That's a real important point. Leveling the playing field.
Mm-hmm. And it also seems to have boosted certain types of work, especially creative roles.
How so?
Well, things like online content creation, YouTubers, streamers,
Mm.
bloggers, but also traditional creative jobs like graphic design, writing, coding. Talent isn't tied to geography anymore.
Right. You can hire or work from anywhere. That's quite transformative for those fields.
It really is.
Okay, so that paints a pretty positive picture overall for the advantages. Lots of upsides.
There definitely are, but, and this is a big but, it's not all smooth sailing.
Ah, okay. Here we go. Time to look at the other side of the coin, the challenges.
And the material we looked at is just as clear about these. They're significant.
Right. So let's start again with the businesses. What are the main headaches for them?
Teamwork and coordination seem to be a big one.
Keeping everyone on the same page when they're not in the same room.
Exactly. Especially for complex projects. Video calls help, obviously, but you lose some of that spontaneous brainstorming, the quick chats, reading body language.
Those little informal check-ins that happen naturally in an office.
Right. Making sure projects stay aligned can just be harder, more complex online.
And it sounds like companies themselves need to change quite fundamentally.
Oh, definitely. It's not just letting people work from home. It means rethinking workflows, how tasks are managed, tracked, adopting new tools, new management styles.
A whole operational shift.
Yes. And then there's company culture, building that sense of team spirit, belonging.
That must be tough when people rarely see each other face to face.
It really can be. Maintaining that connection, that loyalty, often needs, deliberate effort, maybe planned get-togethers or specific online activities. It doesn't just happen organically in the same way.
Yeah, you have to consciously build it.
Yeah.
What about things like training or helping people grow in their careers?
That's another complex area, onboarding new staff, mentoring, providing those informal learning opportunities. It's just trickier without easy in-person access.
Requires different strategies, I suppose.
Absolutely. Okay, so shifting to the downsides for the individuals, what stands out?
Well, the flip side of being alone to focus is feeling alone, isolation.
That comes up a lot. Feeling disconnected from colleagues, missing the social side of work.
Which can really impact team morale and potentially mental well-being for some people, right?
Okay, sure. That social interaction is a key part of the work experience for many.
And ironically, that flexibility we praised,
Yeah.
it can cut both ways.
Yes, definitely. The boundaries between work and home can get really blurry.
Like it's hard to switch off.
Exactly. You're always at the office, in a way. This can lead to working longer hours, feeling like you have to be constantly available.
And potentially burnout.
Yeah, burnout is a real risk if those boundaries aren't managed well by both the individual and the company.
That always on culture.
Yeah.
Okay, what else? Communication issues?
Can be. Misunderstandings might happen more easily without face-to-face cues. Tone can be hard to read in emails or chats.
Nuance gets lost.
Sometimes, yes. And then there's the home environment itself.
Distractions.
Big time. Kids, pets, deliveries, housemates. Life happens. And not everyone has a dedicated, quiet workspace.
True. Working from the sofa isn't ideal long term. And some people just find it harder to stick to a routine without the structure of going to work.
Self-discipline becomes even more crucial, and that's not easy for everyone.
Okay. Are there concerns about things like data security?
Yes, that's mentioned too. Protecting sensitive information when people are working on potentially less secure home networks, it requires good tech and awareness.
Right. And one last thing for individuals. Feeling overlooked.
Ah, yes, the visibility issue. Out of sight, out of mind.
Worries about missing out on promotions or important projects because you're not physically there.
Exactly. A concern that you need to work harder to make your contributions known.
That's a tricky one to navigate.
It really is. Requires proactive communication from everyone involved.
Okay, so bringing this all together now, we've seen clear benefits, but also some really significant challenges. What's the main takeaway?
Well, the core tension is right there, isn't it? Working from home offers these amazing things: flexibility, savings, maybe productivity boosts.
Things people really value.
Deeply. But it absolutely comes with downsides, the potential for isolation, the coordination hurdles, that work-life blur.
So it's definitely not presented as some kind of perfect solution.
Not at all. The sense you get is that making it work effectively, especially long-term or at scale, needs real thought and effort.
It's not just a switch you flip.
No, success seems to hinge on having clear policies, the right technology that actually helps people connect and collaborate.
And supports security.
Right. Plus, training for managers on how to manage remotely, for employees on how to work effectively this way, and a real focus on well-being and maintaining connection.
So a very deliberate, supportive approach is needed.
That seems to be the key message. It's an ongoing adaptation.
Okay, that gives us a really solid, balanced view based on the material. So here's something for you, our listener, to think about.
Hmm.
Given everything we've just discussed, all the pros, all the cons, how much of making remote work truly successful depends on the company? Their policies, their structure, the support they offer,
First?
versus how much depends on the individual, their own work habits, their self-discipline, their ability to manage their own space and boundaries.
Ah, that's a great question. The interplay between the system and the person within it.
Exactly. Something to mull over.
Definitely food for thought.
Well, thank you for joining us on this deep dive exploring working from home.
It's been really interesting to unpack it all.
We hope walking through this has given you some valuable insights and maybe a new perspective.
Hope so too.
Uh,
Until next time.
Goodbye for now.
Goodbye.